Did you know that one of the most famous prophets in the Bible received a direct order from God and, instead of obeying, bought a ticket to the farthest place he could find? This is not just a children's story about a man swallowed by a giant fish. This is the story of Jonah, a man who defied God himself and was swallowed by the depths of disobedience. Jonah was called by God to proclaim judgment on Nineveh, the most powerful and corrupt city of the time. But Jonah, his heart filled with resentment and fear, decided to run away from his responsibility, to flee from the divine call. Imagine the tension between the heavenly mission and the earthly choice. God, the creator of the universe, commands Jonah to go to Nineveh, the capital of Israel's enemies, to proclaim imminent destruction. And Jonah, instead of obeying, boards a ship bound for Tarshish, a place as far away as possible from God's presence. This is a profound drama about rebellion, grace, and the cost of trying to escape the divine call. But behind this story lies a disturbing secret. Jonah's mission hides a powerful revelation about God's mercy, which extends even to our enemies, and about the danger of a nationalistic and resentful heart. Jonah, like many of us, had a heart full of hatred and resentment. He did not want to see Nineveh saved. He wanted to see the city destroyed. And it was this attitude that led him to try to run away from God. But, as we will see, Jonah's escape went wrong, and he learned a radical lesson in the dark belly of a big fish. A lesson about God's mercy and the danger of a hardened heart. But to understand the gravity of the mission and the city to which Jonah was sent, we must first examine closely the divine command and the prophet's reaction. It is this tension between the heavenly mission and the earthly decision that shows us the depth of Jonah's drama. Let's dive into this fascinating tale and discover the eternal lessons it offers us. The story of Jonah begins with a clear and specific command from the Lord. Arise, go to the great city of Nineveh, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. Jonah, an Israelite prophet, received this divine call to travel to one of the most powerful and corrupt cities of his time. The Ninevites were Assyrians, known for their cruelty and for being fierce enemies of the people of Israel. Jonah's task was to pronounce divine judgment against this nation, a mission that, under normal circumstances, would be seen as a victory for the people of Israel. However, Jonah had other plans. Instead of obeying the divine order and heading east toward Nineveh, he decided to flee. He boarded a ship bound for Tarshish, a distant city in the west, as far away from God's call as possible. The key verse that encapsulates his deliberate disobedience is Jonah 1 verse 3. Jonah set out, but to flee from the presence of the Lord, to Tarshish. This act of rebellion reveals not only Jonah's fear, but also a deep resentment. He did not want to see the Ninevites saved. He wanted to see them destroyed. But, as we will see, Jonah's escape did not take him away from God, but directly into the center of a supernatural storm. Jonah's disobedience did not go unnoticed. God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed a storm to strike the ship Jonah was on, revealing that his escape was not only physical, but also spiritual. Let's explore the mystery of this escape and the divine storm that followed, discovering how God, in his mercy, works even in the most unlikely situations. In the midst of the storm, the fury of the sea violently struck the ship on which Jonah was fleeing. Giant waves crashed against the hull, threatening to swallow everyone on board. The sailors, desperate and terrified, struggled to control the ship, while the wind howled like a furious demon. In the dark and damp hold of the ship, Jonah slept soundly, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding above him. He was so absorbed in his spiritual lethargy that even the most violent storm could not wake him. This powerful image reveals the depth of his distance from God. The sailors, pagans who did not know the God of Israel, cried out to their gods, desperate for a solution. In the midst of the panic, they decided to cast lots to find out who was responsible for the storm. The lot pointed to Jonah. When confronted, he confessed without hesitation, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land." The irony was profound. The pagans showed more fear of God than the prophet himself. They were terrified to discover that they were transporting someone who was fleeing from the God who controlled the elements. Jonah then decided that the only way to save the sailors was to be thrown into the sea. This act of apparent self-sacrifice was, in fact, a way to continue running away from his original calling. He would rather face death than obey God. The sailors reluctantly threw Jonah into the raging sea. And then something miraculous happened. The sea calmed down. The storm stopped, and the waters quieted. But Jonah's fate was far from decided. He had escaped immediate death, but he was about to face an experience that would change his life forever. The most famous episode in Jonah's story was about to begin. After being thrown into the sea, Jonah faced a fate that seemed even more cruel and final. But God, in his infinite mercy, had other plans. A large fish, sent by him, swallowed Jonah, providing a strange temporary refuge. Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the creature, a period that Jesus would later use as a prophetic sign of his own death and resurrection. During that time, Jonah prayed. This was not a prayer of despair, but of gratitude and surrender. He finally recognized God's sovereignty and cried out. He cried out to the Lord in his distress, and he heard him. In the belly of the fish, Jonah found himself in a sanctuary of brokenness, a place where he was forced to face the reality that one cannot run away from God. This place of extreme adversity became a place of revelation, where Jonah, in his deepest distress, encountered the presence of God. Jonah's prayer, recorded in Jonah 2, is a confession of faith and submission. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, and you heard me. The belly of the fish was not a prison, but a place of spiritual transformation. Jonah finally understood that true freedom comes from obedience to God, not from escape. When after 3 days and 3 nights, he was vomited on a dry land, Jonah was ready to obey. He finally accepted the mission to go to Nineveh, but his inner journey was far from over. Anger, prejudice, and resentment still burned in his heart. He still needed to learn the true mercy of God. We reach the climax of a narrative, where the supreme irony of the whole story is revealed in its fullness. Jonah, finally obeying the divine command, goes to Nineveh and proclaims the simplest and most hopeless message possible. 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. Against all expectations, the entire city, from the king to the simplest citizen, repents with extraordinary faith. The streets of Nineveh are filled with lamentations, fasting, and supplications. Even the animals are covered with ashes in an act of collective contrition. God, in his infinite mercy, sees their sincere repentance and decides to spare the city. And what is Jonah's reaction? Deep anger, as recorded in Jonah 4 verse 1. He, who should be a messenger of grace, prefers death to seeing God's mercy extended to his enemies. This is the heart of the book. It is not about a fish, but about the resentful heart of a prophet who did not share God's compassion. Jonah, who had experienced divine grace in the belly of the fish, now refused to extend that same grace to others. This is the profound drama that the story of Jonah presents to us. The hypocrisy of loving mercy for oneself, but desiring judgment for others. This is the dilemma we all face. Do we, like Jonah, have a Ninevite heart, full of prejudice and resistance to divine grace extended to those we consider unworthy? Jonah challenges us to reflect on our own attitudes and ask, are we truly willing to share God's mercy with everyone, Or do we harbor resentment in our hearts that blinds us to the true essence of divine love? This is the radical lesson Jonah learned, and it is a lesson that resonates through the centuries, calling us to examine our own hearts and open ourselves to grace that transcends all human barriers. Jonah's life teaches us a lot about the escapes we undertake to avoid God's will, especially when it involves showing compassion to people or groups we despise. Perhaps you are fleeing to a personal Tarshish, a place where you believe you can escape the responsibility to love and forgive. Ask yourself, to which Tarshish are you fleeing? Who? Like Jonah, do you not want God to forgive? God's final lesson to Jonah is a masterstroke. Jonah felt sorry for a plant, but not for an entire city of people. He valued a fig tree more than the souls of thousands of Ninevites. The book of Jonah ends with an open divine question. Should I not have compassion on the great city of Nineveh? That question echoes for us today. God is calling us to reflect on our own hearts and open ourselves to grace that transcends all human barriers. God wants to heal us from our prejudice and make us instruments of His grace to all. He desires that our compassion extend not only to those we love, but also to those we hate. God is inviting the community to embrace His missionary heart, where mercy and compassion are for everyone, regardless of who they are or what they have done. Prepare for the closing, where we will tie this lesson to a call for the community to embrace God's missionary heart, showing compassion and love to everyone, just as He loves us unconditionally. The story of Jonah confronts us with the universality of God's grace and the paralysis of our own prejudice. Jonah ran away from his mission, but God did not give up on him. God is as interested in saving the Ninevites as He is in saving us, and His mission will always achieve its goal, with or without our willing cooperation. The truth is that we all have a personal Nineveh, a place or group of people we are reluctant to go to or find it difficult to show compassion to. But God calls us to be instruments of His grace, to love as He loves without exception. Here I am. Let's make this declaration together. In the comments, declare "Here I am," and share a people, person, or situation for whom you find it difficult to pray or to whom you are reluctant to witness. Let God transform your heart of stone into a heart of flesh, capable of loving and forgiving as He loves and forgives. Remember, the God of Jonah's second chance is the same God who enables us to obey and love as He loves. May God bless us with courage, compassion, and a heart aligned with His. Let's be the difference the world needs to see, showing the world God's grace and love, even to those we consider unworthy. Here I am, Lord, send me.